Got it. Okay, and we are live for Tuesday training. Welcome, everybody. So glad that you guys are here for Tuesday training. I'm also delighted to be here for Tuesday training. I'm just organizing my window here so I can see all of you. Hi, Asanda. I'm so glad that you're here. Gary's here. Lori's here. Who else popped in? Mariella, so glad that you're here. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday training. We're practitioners. I am delighted to be here. Delighted to pour into you again. I'm super excited about today's topic. We're going to talk about tensile stress and how it hijacks symptoms and informs treatment plans. I know, Lori, you may have inspired this one.
We were just literally 2 seconds ago just talking about this. Oh my goodness.
Yeah? You were talking about it with colleagues?
Yep, with the pod.
Oh, fantastic. Okay,
Yep.
well, this might be super timely
So
then.
good.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm also going to share with you guys how it affected a treatment plan that I worked through last week to serve a client, and how it can be super distracting to a practitioner to know, like, where are you supposed to work. So we're going to dive into tensile stress and client work and treatment plans today related to tensile stress symptoms. And so that's what's on deck for today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. For those of you who've been here 100 times or more, I'm also so glad that you're here. I love being here with all of you at this time each week. I'm Gina. If I haven't met you before, I'm happy to meet you now. I'm Gina Schatz, the developer of the Schatz method, which is a method that I developed while working clinically with my own clients as a movement and manual practitioner, and I was looking for solutions. Like, I wanted to just fix it already. And so along the way, I figured out how to do that. And now I also share that information with other practitioners. So if you're here for the first time, we're going to be talking about client work and how I work to resolve their issues from their symptoms to the solution. And if you're in my mastery track, I heard that y'all just had that conversation about tensile stress. So perhaps this will be a refresher for you, or maybe there'll be something new and delicious. Either way, we're about to dive in. So how many of you know about tensile stress? How many of you know about tensile stress? Do you know what it is? Have you heard about it? If you never heard about it, that counts too. Lori is like, I got it, tensile stress. Okay, great. And for those of you who are watching here and not on camera, feel free to use your chat. I know I've shared before that I always prefer direct connection and conversation, but if you only have access to your chat today, of course, use that. And also feel free to come off mute and chime in if you can't be on camera, which is also okay. But do participate in the conversation if there's something here for you so that I can support you. So tensile stress is the question on the table. So Lori is a yes. You got tensile stress. You've heard of it before. Anna is a yes. Sanda, how about you? Tensile stress, is it new to you, or do you know what it is? No, not yet. Okay. Valerie? Tensile stress is good. And Gary is a yes. Okay, great. So let's do a super quick then recap on what tensile stress is, just so we can all be in the same conversation at the starting point, which is great. We got to know what the things are in order to be able to solve them, right? So tensile stress is a form of tightness, actually. And I teach this in a few different courses inside of our academy. And of course, our mastery track practitioners are deep into tensile stress because it is part of what we get to resolve. So tensile stress is a type of tightness. How many different types of tightness are there? Hot seating you guys right out of the gate, since I know you were just talking about it. How many types of tightness are there? 4. Yep. How many of those types of tightnesses would be resolved by releasing, stretching, or lengthening the muscles? Of the 4 types of tightness, only one is resolved by stretching, lengthening, or releasing. Yes, that right there is gold. So for those of you who, and we all have been here, so I'm not throwing shade on anyone, for those of you who are deep thumb, deep elbow, deep stretches kind of practitioners, cool. And just notice that you're only potentially resolving 25% of someone's discomfort if it's related to tension, right? So only one type of tension out of the 4 is resolved through stretching, lengthening, or releasing. Is tensile stress one of the types of tightness that is resolved through stretching, lengthening, or releasing? No, no, it is not. So just like the other types of tightness that do not get resolved, hey, Cheryl, welcome. Just like the other types of tightness that do not get resolved from stretching and lengthening, tensile stress is one of them. And it's for some a little harder to understand out of the gate what it is. So if we don't know what it is and we don't know how to solve it, then we're sort of spinning out. So I really want to talk to you guys a bit today about tensile stress and what to do about it. And then weave it in, as I promised, into the case study that I did just last week. So who can give us the definition of what tensile stress is? What is the definition of tensile stress? What is it exactly? Anybody?
I'll jump
Marilyn,
in.
welcome. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
So it's when the muscle fibers are at their maximum, so I hate to use the word stretch, but their maximum lengthened position, and there's nowhere for them to actually go. So Lori just talked about, a elastic that is around a big bundle of papers. And if you've ever noticed this, an elastic over time, when it is stretched over a big bundle of papers, actually disintegrates and breaks.
Indeed.
It can't. And if you unbundle that, if you take it off the bundle of papers, there's no way that elastic is going to go back to its original shape.
That's true. That's a great, perfect description, Anna, of tensile stress. It is exactly as you said. It's when the origin and insertion are at their maximum distance away from each other, which the muscle is designed to do, right? Like contraction is origin and insertion towards each other. Lengthening is origin and insertion away from each other. Of course, there's more movement on the insertion end, but you get the point. Away, towards, away, towards. That's how muscles are designed. They're supposed to do that. No problem. But tensile stress is when the away part is now at, as you said, Anna, maximum and or fixed in that position, which means there can't be a contraction if it's lengthened. Right. So there's a little hijacking going on in the muscle spindles. And so I love the analogy of a rubber band over paper is too big. I've used that forever. It seems to like be a real visual for everyone. And as you said, Anna, the longer the rubber band is held in that position, the less strength it has, the less elastic quality it has. It can even disintegrate over time. Now, I wouldn't want us to think that muscles disintegrate, because that's super not what happens, and they're very changeable and there's lots of blood in them, and blood is the change agent. But it does mean, though, if we use that analogy for anatomy, it does mean, though, that the muscle's function is disintegrating is kind of a strong way to describe it, but it's not functioning. There is a problem with the muscle's ability to contract when it's in that state of tensile stress. Okay, great. So really important to know what tensile stress is. It's more common than we think, actually. It happens, unfortunately, all the time. And the number one takeaway that I want you to have so far is that stretching is not the answer. And if we use that picture of the rubber band being pulled too tight, the last thing you want to do is pull it tighter. Take origin and insertion away from each other, stretch the rubber band more. It's the last thing you want to do. It will probably, if it's a rubber band, pop off and maybe even hit you in the eye. And it won't be able to do its job at all, even at all, if it's not even wrapped around those papers. Muscles aren't as dramatic, if you will, but they can't do the contractile job. The spindles of the muscles can't do the contractile job if they're under tensile stress. They're not going to break necessarily and come apart if you stretch somebody, but it's not going to help. In fact, it'll irritate those tissues, because the difference with muscles from a rubber band is that muscle fibers have nerve response in them. So now we have an irritation in a human body that we wouldn't necessarily, we don't know. I don't think rubber bands feel. I don't think they have an intact nervous system. So what we want to do when we're resolving someone's pain and discomfort is resolve it, not add to it. So I really want you to know that under a tensile stress situation, the last thing you want to do is stretch or deep tissue it. It'll actually irritate the fibers even more and increase your client's pain and discomfort. So that's the number one takeaway out of the gate. And then we get to, okay, well, I get it in concept what tensile stress is, but how do I know if a muscle is tensile stress? Like I get it on paper, it makes sense in my logical brain, but like, what does that even look like? How do I know if a muscle is under tensile stress? It's an amazing question, and it's common. So let's unpack that. How do we know if a muscle is under tensile stress? Given what you know about what tensile stress is, how would you know if a muscle's under tensile stress? What is it doing?
Well, wouldn't it, if you ask that muscle to contract, it wouldn't be able to. If you try to engage that muscle.
It's true potentially, although that is the remedy for tensile. But before we even get to what to do about it, Anna, how do we know that it's in tensile stress? Oh, I think you were saying I would know it because it wouldn't contract. Yeah, maybe. And there's a more clear way too to see it. So let's make one more guess at it.
Well, it couldn't stretch anymore.
It can't stretch anymore, right? It can't stretch anymore and it can't contract anymore. So let me ask a different question. From a visual assessment perspective, how would you as a practitioner be able to identify a muscle under tensile stress? What would the body be doing? What would the muscle be doing? What would you see?
A lack of movement. I don't know.
Okay, it's a good guess.
Would it be, you know how sometimes these upper traps get really like that ball, they get really tight, or they feel it, they look it, and there's no moving it.
It's possible.
Yeah, there was something in my head that, and then I lost it about that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's exactly why I'm pausing on this question. Because if you can't identify it, how do you know that you need to do anything? It's like, I can give you the doing, but if you don't know how to identify it, how do you know when to apply the doing? So that's exactly why we're here, and your answers are all awesome. There's 4 types of tightness though. So whatever you're talking about in the trap, or whatever you're talking about in a muscle that doesn't contract more or lengthen more, could be another type of tightness. And it could be tensile tightness too. But how do we know if it's tensile tightness? Like, what's the distinction in tensile tightness that's not in the others?
Postural dysfunction.
Say it again.
Postural dysfunction would be one way to recognize that possibility.
Postural dysfunction. Say more about that. How would posture reveal a muscle under tensile stress?
Somebody with rounded shoulders and hunched over. The scapulas would not be where they belong.
So which muscle would be under tensile stress then?
Could be your traps or rhomboids or both.
Okay, so yes, and I like where you're going, but let's make it super clear on a math formula, if you will. Rather than guessing which of the 600 muscles might be under tensile stress because someone's posture is awry, think about it this way. When the muscle is in its lengthened position, it's got more potential to be under tensile stress than if it's under any other position, because that is the definition of tensile stress, when origin and insertion are away from each other. So here we go again. You guys might be really excited about what I'm about to say, and you might eye roll about what I'm about to say. And sometimes it's a little bit of both, and that's okay too. So it takes us back to what we've been talking about for months. If you know the joint action and you know the muscle that does that action, you know what that muscle's doing when it's contracted. The opposite action is its lengthened position. It's a lever system. Okay, joint action, what muscle's doing it? That muscle that's doing that joint action is contracted. The opposite joint action is when that muscle is lengthened. When that muscle is lengthened, it could be lengthened. The lever system says lengthen and contract, lengthen and contract, lengthen and contract. But in that same position, held over a long period of time, or held at a maximum position, that could then turn into tensile stress. Normal range of lengthening, a little bit too far, held too long, tensile stress in its lengthened position. So Val, what you said about someone's posture, sort of slouching and leaning over, which muscle would it be? It would be the muscles that are lengthened in that posture.
Correct.
And so in order to know what muscles are lengthened, we've got to know their joint action, what they look like when they're neutral, what they look like contracted and lengthened, and then pick on them from there. Got it? Does that land for everybody? Lori's maybe. Okay, Lori, read it back for me then. Because if we can understand what it looks like, then we can spot it and then do something about it. And I'll
So
tell you
it's
guys.
the muscles that are lengthening in a posture or over lengthening would be the ones that could be under tensile stress because of the rubber band, the overstretched rubber band.
Because of the rubber band, origin and insertion are away from each other,
Yep.
which is a normal function of muscles.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about tensile stress, it's when things are abnormal. So lengthen and contract is in the normal range of function in a muscle. Tensile stress meaning something's off. It's too lengthened. It's too held for too long in a lengthened position. Any of those factors create tensile stress.
What about a muscle like the hamstring, where you can't really see it so much, but oftentimes seem to be lengthened and tight?
What's the question, Cheryl?
So, like, I think the question that you had asked was, how can you visually see it? How do you identify it? Right? And I understand, like, seeing postural, situations where you're rounded, or, your neck's not sitting right because something's lengthened. But what about those muscles that maybe are not, like, we can't see it visually so much? Is there another way to pinpoint it? Is there another way to identify?
It's the same process, actually. And the process is to know where the joints are supposed to be in their neutral position.
Okay.
So, and that's true for every muscle, right? So if we know what joint action is, we have to learn joint action from a neutral position. And I teach that, right? Neutral position. So using the hamstrings as your example, Murph doesn't have his legs on today, but here's where his femur would be. In a neutral position, his femur relative to his acetabulum would be sitting like this. But if there's something awry in his posture, like he has a posterior tilt in his pelvis, see what happens to the joint, the acetabulum relative to the femur, this being the femur, that being the acetabulum. This is neutral. He's got a posterior tilted pelvis. His pubic bone is forward. For mastery practitioners, you know that the apex is on the index finger. It looks like this. Do you see how the relationship between the femur and the acetabulum changed, Cheryl?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So here's bad posture. And here is where the hamstrings originate, right? So that there's an attachment point here. If this means that the attachment point on the hamstrings, this posture would indicate that the attachment point for the hamstrings is in neutral and everybody's happy, then this would indicate that the attachment points have now been changed and they're not happy.
Okay.
And then our job is to find out what changed and how are they not happy and how do I return it back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Does that connect for you, Cheryl?
It does. Yeah, it does. It's just knowing what neutral and optimal alignment is. It's all about being able to identify what doesn't look like optimal alignment.
It's true. Yeah, we spend a ton of time on that in mastery. And I think we do a bit of it too when we're talking joint actions in any of our academy courses. To know a joint action, you've got to know where neutral is. You have to have a starting point. Right. I'm starting from here and I'm taking action to an action. So the starting point is that optimal alignment that you would assign your visual assessment to. Absolutely. And then go from there to joint action. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
So I'm lost.
Okay.
Because we were talking about how to identify a muscle that's in tensile strength, and you took us back to muscle joint action and the lever system. So where I got lost was, obviously one muscle contracts on one side of the lever, the other muscle lengthens on the other side of the lever. So then are you saying that we should be looking for the contracted muscle in order to find if the opposite muscle is in tensile stress?
No, I'm not saying that. Again, I see now where the thread got confusing for you. What I'm saying is, in order to identify a muscle under tensile stress, we want to go beyond it feels tight. Like, because what type of tightness matters? Each of the 4 types of tightness require a different intervention from us as a practitioner to remedy. So I need to know if it's tensile stress or something else. The simplest example is, if I don't know it's under tensile stress and I go to stretch it or release it, I'm literally doing the opposite of benefit. So I need to know, how do I identify tensile stress from the other types of tension, the other types of tightness? So I'm using stress and tension and tightness in this conversation interchangeably. It's under stress, it feels tight, there's tension in the fibers, all meaning the same thing. Okay, you with me still, Anna? Still good?
I am, except when you said it feels tight, because
Yeah.
I thought feeling tight would be contractile rather than.
I get it, right. Common mistake on our part as practitioners. Think about the rubber band again. If a rubber band is stretched over a pile of papers that's big, does that rubber band feel tight? Yeah, you could pluck it like a guitar string. Doesn't mean it's under contractile stress though. And the same is true for muscle fibers. If
So the
origin
tensile, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Cheryl. Go ahead.
So the tensile stress is a stress it's been there for a while. I mean,
It's
how does
either-
it differ from other stress?
Yeah, it differs from
Or
other
from
stress.
other tightness? Or,
It differs from other tightness because the origin and insertion are away from each other.
but if
The
somebody like pulled a muscle and it's tightened and lengthened, would that also be considered tensile stress if it's at its lengthened, longest stretch that it can, my words aren't coming out right, but if it's at its lengthened stage?
Yep, that is the definition of tensile stress. Origins and
Okay.
insertions away from each other, either held there under duress or long time period has passed.
Okay.
Right? It's excessive. Is the key is that it's lengthened, which is a normal range for a muscle, but it's excessive in either time or force or patterned habit. Something's excessive about it. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it can happen in a trauma onset, like a pulled muscle in, a soccer accident or something. It can also happen from the way you sit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It happened with my client the other day, just in his normal workout at the gym. Normal workout in the gym. Massive tensile stress, ton of symptoms, huge pain, problem. Okay. So Gary said muscle is locked in the lengthened position. Exactly. And I would say it's just excessively held in a lengthened position. And the other 4 types of tightness, who wants to share them? Mastery grads, mastery practitioners. Come on, Anna, you got it.
Roger.
Okay. I'm Valerie. Do you want to do it with me?
Valerie.
Contractile,
Yeah.
tensile, turgor, atrophy.
There you go. Yep. Nice job. Well done. Nice tag
See, you
teaming,
didn't
Valerie.
me.
What was the first one you said?
Contractile.
Contractile. Okay.
Contractile, contractile.
Contractile.
You got it.
Yep. Shortened and tight, stretch and lengthen. Deep tissue, elbows, all that works. One type of tightness out of the 4. That's it.
Tina, so do you think then that like now that I'm thinking about it, people come in and I like it too. I'm like, rub my shoulders, but I'm sitting like this. Is that contractile stress? And
well, that's exactly what we're onto right now as practitioners.
Right.
We get to find out, is it contractile or tensile stress?
or I mean,
Yeah, are
Tensile.
those fibers lengthened? You get to know that because you know what optimal alignment is, which
Right.
means no action in that joint. No action in that joint. A neutral joint means everybody's equally lengthened and strengthened and happy. Nobody's contracting, nobody's lengthening. In neutral alignment, they're neutral.
Yeah.
They haven't yet contracted or lengthened from phasic action.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know some of you listening might be like, well, of course there has to be tension or we'd be jello on the floor. Uh-huh. Yes. And we're talking joint action, which means phasic action, which means movement. Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking with long periods of time of this, it's
Mm-hmm.
tensile, right? It's tensile. The gut, how often, just like me, do we go in? I'm like, well, I'm gonna rub it because initially it feels good, and then you're right, like the next, and might feel good the next day too, and then it's like, oh, not so, because we're
Right.
oh boy.
And initially it can feel good, right? I mean, like,
Mhm.
hey, we're in the business of making people comfortable. So if
Mhm.
you're a massage therapist and you're like, oh shit, I've massaged everyone's tensile stress muscles at the beginning of time, fine, do it for 5 minutes to bring comfort to their nervous system, and then resolve the problem. Otherwise, it's rinse and repeat. They come back every week for their massage, and in between, they don't feel great. You're not doing them a service if they don't feel great in between needing you to take away tension for 10 minutes. Like, let's be honest, right? If you're in the world of resolving orthopedic issues, if that's not your jam, you're probably not here. So I'm talking to all because I know that you work the way I work. Okay. So we get to find out if it's under tensile stress. The way we know that is because we know what a muscle looks like. Here we go again, Anna. We know what a muscle looks like when it's contracting because we know it's action. That means that insertion moves towards origin, which means the opposite of that joint action is lengthening the muscle. Is that joint action sustaining? Is it postural? Is there weight bearing while the muscle's lengthened? Because then it's probably under tensile stress. Or it is under tensile stress. And that will feel tight.
But what is the visual? I thought you'd asked us. So I'm not a manual practitioner, right?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You know what posture is. You even more so than a manual practitioner. You know exactly what alignment should look like as a yoga teacher.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't get to one more time. I'm going to say this. In this community, we do not get to disqualify ourselves in our abilities because of the type of practitioner we are. Because I'm telling you, it's the same for both types. Movement and manual practitioners alike, it's the same information. How you address it may be different in your treatment setting, but what you address and the resolution to fix it is the same. Okay?
Yeah, just keep saying it.
I know.
We'll keep saying it, Anna. It's okay. We'll keep saying it.
Well, it's easy. It's an easy place to go when we feel overwhelmed and we're like, hey, I don't get it. And I probably am not going to have it. But that's not true.
Sometimes I really dislike you because it's like you read my mind, because that's exactly where I was. Like,
I know.
it's not my thing. I can
I know. But it is your thing. I have you for a year, Anna. It will be so your thing. Yeah. Okay. So are we clear on tensile stress, what that tension type is? Does everybody know like how to identify it, what it's actually doing in a muscle, the rubber band being pulled, origin and insertion too far away? Do you guys get that part so far? I'm gonna share more of it. I want to make sure we just like have the concept of tensile tightness. We good? Okay. So far, so good. Okay, great. So let's go here. And this is, Cheryl, this is going to also fill in some pieces around optimal alignment. So we talk a lot in my training, and whether you're in the mastery track or working through the academy on your own, the 4 curves of the spine are a big deal. Big, 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 big deal. Big deal. Okay. We're all designed that way. Even Murph, my God, the guy's a mess and he still has 4 curves in his spine, right? Everybody is designed with 4 balanced curves in their spine. Okay. In the lumbar curve, Well, actually, let me ask you guys, I'm going to put him on his side just so you can see the 4 curves. I like to call him a seahorse and hold him up, but I think you can see it better in the camera if he's prone. So without going too down a rabbit hole on alignment of the spine, if you've heard this before, it'll be repeat. If you haven't heard this before, you'll want me to go down a rabbit hole with you another time. There's 4 curves in the spine, and let me let Pauline in here. 2 of them are concave and 2 of them are convex. Okay, and it looks like this when they're standing. I'm just pointing them out so you can see all 4 curves. Sacrum, lumbar, thoracic, cervical. And I'm exaggerating it with my hand so you can see that there's 4 curves. If that's new to you, I really recommend you dive in there because it changes everything about what you see and what you do and how you understand joint action and pain and restoring function. Like big, 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 big deal. Okay. So this is neutral. Even though there's curves here, this is neutral. This is neutral alignment of the spine. There's no muscles here pulling on anything. There's just natural curves, which means that this curve right here in the lumbar spine, this is neutral alignment for the spine, even though it has a curve associated with neutral. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. And in the neutralness of the lumbar spine, the distance between the spinous processes are all equal, right? The distance between the discs in the front are all equal. They're neutral. They're just stacked like Oreo cookies, neutral. In this shape, that's neutral. So if I were to do a back bend, right, and originate it from here, I know that those of us who are movement practitioners can understand that it comes from lots of places. But if I initiate a back bend from my lumbar curve, let me step back 1 second. What muscles hold this alignment along the spine? What muscles main muscles hold this alignment? Hold the Oreo cookies in their shape.
Are you asking for the paraspinal?
Paraspinal.
Paraspinals, there we go. Great. So back to my question. If I initiate a back bend from the lumbar section of the spine, what do the paraspinals do then?
They
Contract.
They contract. So the origin and insertion move toward each other. The muscles look like they get shorter and the curve gets exaggerated. Back bend, lumbar curve, right? Oh, the sun. You guys, I thought I was going to be in the right position today. The sun just keeps chasing me around this table. I hope you guys can still see. Can you still see okay?
Yes.
Everybody good? Okay, great. So this is neutral. The muscles aren't doing anything except holding the spine up. Then I go to do a back bend. The muscles in this lumbar, the paraspinals in this lumbar section of the spine contract. Great. Now let's say, for example, I'm seated like I am right now, like you are right now. Do you think your lumbar curve is in neutral, or do you think you might be slogging a little bit and maybe slumping just a tiny little bit where your paraspinals are now moving further back towards the chair than they are in their neutral alignment? So everybody sat upright. Perfect. I love the subtlety of like the suggestion of upright sitting. Yeah. So when our paraspinals move backward, when our spinous process moves backwards towards the chair, we're taking out this natural curve where the muscles are in neutral. Now, what did the paraspinals do when I moved my spinous process backwards? Now, what did the paraspinal? They lengthened.
What?
They lengthened. Okay. So do you think that if we're holding the paraspinals in a lengthened position and we sit at our desk like that for hours upon hours, at the end of the day, do you think our low back will feel tight even though we haven't been to the gym or in a yoga class? Yeah. Is that tightness from so much contraction that the muscles need to be released and stretched?
No, such a good example, Gina.
Mm-hmm.
Such a
I thought so.
relatable example. Really good. That really brought it home for me. Thank you.
Good. My pleasure. I'm glad. Okay.
And what do people instinctively do? Arch their back.
Yes, because they're trying to bring the origin and insertion back together. They're trying to add that contractibility back. If the muscle's still elastic, that can solve it for sure. Except that we know that patterns start forming after 90 seconds. And so one little back bend might not fix the whole day's activity. Plus we know what fascia does after 49 minutes. And I could just go on, but let me just stay with tensile stress just for today. Okay, now let's say, for example, that we're in a yoga class or a Pilates class or the gym, and we are holding our body in a position where this lumbar curve is not neutral. Let's say we're in a seated posture in yoga, and we have other restrictions in the body that prevent us from sitting upright on the apex of our sit bones, which prevent us from having a neutral lumbar curve. And now we start moving on top of it. Or let's say you're like me and you're on a Pilates reformer, laying supine, moving the legs on the carriage with weight resistance, and not having the proper alignment where your lumbar back is flat on the carriage while you're also moving and weight resisting. When our back spine is flat on the carriage, I'll just ask you again, what is happening to the paraspinals in the lumbar curve when I'm laying down flat with my lumbar curve touching the mat, the floor, the carriage, the weight bench? What's happening to the paraspinals? They're lengthening. They're lengthening. As soon as they're lengthened and I add weight to them, they are under tensile stress. As soon as they're lengthened, because my spine is to the floor, they're lengthened. As soon as I add tension to them, now they're stressed. Okay.
Okay, but any good teacher will tell you to engage all of your abdominal muscles, including your TVA, right? So that you're not sitting there just with your erector spinae lengthened.
Sure. I mean, so, it sounds a little bit like we're going to throw shade at the teacher. I happen to know that my Pilates teacher is excellent, not because I trained her, although that did make her better. She was already excellent when I found her, but she couldn't see underneath me. She said the right things, but I wasn't doing them. I had other functional issues that made it harder for me to do. And anytime we're in dynamic action, things move fast. You don't have time to stop. It's not hatha yoga when you're moving, where you stop, you wait, you align, you tweak, you move, you try, you breathe, and then hold it. Moving in a gym or moving in a vinyasa yoga class or moving on a carriage in Pilates or walking across the floor to get a drink from my kitchen, that's dynamic action. That requires the patterns already be there and be set. And that's a whole other ball of wax. Okay. In the absence of power, your body will recruit from muscles to do the job. So when I didn't have power in that part of my body, I was recruiting by sending my spine to the carriage. Didn't even know I was doing it. Those paraspinals are under tensile stress, and I was in pain for a long, long time. Lori, did you have a question minutes ago while I was on my...
No. It was just the same thing about what you said about the teacher. Sure, we could do that. Me as a student, I'm a student a lot of time. I know to engage my TBA. No. Do I engage all the time? You know what I mean? Like people cue us and we know better. Mm-hmm. But do we do it all the time, to Gina's point, when I'm walking across to grab a glass of water? Probably not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some grace that gets to happen.
Yeah, there's grace on the client's part and the instructor's part, and it's on us to remedy it. But let's say, for example, you are spotting it and you don't want your client to move and they are unable to restore that curve to neutral while they're in your presence. That's possible. There could be a functional discrepancy there that you're meant to intervene and remedy for them. How do you do that? Just because they came like this doesn't mean they sit like this. Right? Just because they came that way doesn't mean in that moment all of that capability is available to them. And that's where we intervene. That's why we do the work we do. Okay. So now you guys ready for a real life case study situation that came in?
That was really nice, Gina, because even if they might not be capable yet of what we're asking.
Yeah, and it's not about even yet. It's just in that moment, what else is going on in their body, right? Like think about me. I teach this for a living. I know it backwards and forwards. I know all the joint actions. And it doesn't mean that my body has the capability in that moment. I had an injury I was working through. Knowing it doesn't change that. I still had an injury, right? I had been lifting something heavy for quite a while, and I was extremely injured in my low back. I was going to Pilates to try to regain strength and function. Doesn't mean I was first time on the carriage able to like just bypass the injury that I was navigating and put my 4 curves back to neutral and then move a little bit of the springs, for strength. I wasn't available to me at that moment. I'm designed for it to be available to me. I know how, but I still had to work through the injury. Okay. And that is the work that we do. How do you support someone to work through the injury so that they don't perpetuate it? And do you know what the injury is? And not meaning what they did in their life before they came to you, but like what is injured in the tissues? What is tensile stress? If I know what that is, then I know how to address it. If I don't know what it is, I don't know the injury. Doesn't matter what I was lifting. What matters is what happened in my lumbar spine anatomy. What happened to the pieces parts in that injury? That's what matters so that we can resolve it. Okay. You guys ready for the case study, or is it too soon? No, you're ready. Okay, great. All right. So I've already set the stage for you. I just want you to remember that I have set the stage for you. So a client came in last week and was adamant that they had pulled a hamstring. Adamant. Put it on their calendar when they scheduled themselves on my, to put themselves on my book. Positive it was a hamstring pull, only one. It was only the right hamstring. And the reason they were coming in is because now it was creating low back pain. Okay. How many of you would be tempted to check out their hamstrings when they came in? Just honest. How many of you would be tempted to check out their hamstrings when they came in? I signed up. Perfect. Awesome. Cheryl, maybe. Lori?
Well, before I dug down, yeah, I would have.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally normal. And don't do that. Here's why. Because now, instead of having to memorize every injury, go with the laws of the body. The law of the body tells us that 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else. So even though the client told me he's positive he pulled a hamstring and now it's become systemic and it's going into his low back, sounds convincing. Sounds like he's attentive and aware and it's a compelling story. But I know the laws of the body tell me there's only a 10% chance the hamstring's the problem, which means there's only a 10% chance I'm going to fix it if I go to them. And I like to win. So I'm not going to those hamstrings, which doesn't mean I know where it is. It just means that from that moment of him starting, by coming in to start the session, I knew where it probably wasn't. And the hamstrings still had something to tell me, which is okay, right? The hamstrings have something to tell me, but massaging them or stretching them is not going to solve his problem. Okay. So then I asked him, all the right questions that we get to ask when we're doing a proper intake. And there is a way to do a proper intake, which I've mentioned before. And in his intake, he shares with me that the day before the hamstring pain, so now we know it's before the pain came, what did you do? The day before the hamstring pain, he was at the gym doing his regular workout, and he works out regularly and always has. He's been a client for probably a decade. And his body constitution doesn't have a lot of muscle mass on it. And so he really works out a lot to try to bulk up. He's very lean, thin guy. And he's an avid worker-outer, and he does certain things on even days and certain things on odd days, and he never misses a day. And that's his MO. So while he's at the gym, it's now an odd day and he's doing legs, and he decides he's going to bulk up, and he put a 20-pound backpack on his back for more weight, for more resistance, because more resistance equals more bulk. That makes sense. And he was doing squats with this backpack on, and he noticed something in his low back first. Remember, this is before the hamstring pain. The hamstring pain came the day after the gym, the even day. So he's at the gym and he feels a little something in his low back, and he's like, oh, something feels a little off in my low back. And he asked the guy that he was working out with, do you see anything? The guy he was working out with was not a practitioner, didn't have visual assessment, doesn't know about neutral joint action, all the stuff we know, but enough to say to him, yeah, look like you're slouching in your low back. Okay, so we just walked through us right here. We just walked through slouching in the low back. Remember what slouching in the low back was? Slouching in the low back. What does that do to the curve?
Over lengthened.
Yeah, what's over lengthened? Paraspinals, exactly. So over lengthened paraspinals. So is that contractile stress or is that tensile stress?
Tensile.
Right. And even if it was just a normal range and it was just the lengthened position, but it wasn't tensile yet, the addition of the 20-pound backpack guaranteed it was tensile stress, because it's more weight, more resistance, more movement, more repetition. So again, tensile stress, a muscle lengthening doesn't mean it's under tensile stress. It's when it's lengthening while the body's out of alignment and there's extra torque needed, power needed from that muscle, and or it's held for a long period of time. Remember, the key word on tensile stress is lengthened to excess. Excess time, excess length, excess weight bearing, excess. Something's excessive. Okay, so out of the gate, he puts the backpack on. His paraspinals are lengthened. He adds 20 pounds and then starts going through repetition. And his body told him in that moment, this isn't good for me in this area. But then he made a little adjustment and kept going on with his workout. And the next day, his hamstring hurt. So what do you think was the cause of the hamstring pull that he came in for?
The lengthening of that back muscle of the paraspinals.
Lengthening of the paraspinals. Anybody else?
And I think of the joint muscle of the hamstrings is flexion, right? I mean, it flexes, so no, it doesn't.
Hamstrings are a little tricky, Cheryl, because they're biaxial. So it does flex, but it flexes at the knee. What does it do up at the hip?
Yeah.
What do hamstrings do at the hip?
Is it extension? Does it do some extension?
Back extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, hip extension. Hamstrings do
Right.
hip extension. Yep. Great. Nice job. So how did that lengthened paraspinal activity create a symptom that convinced my client he had a hamstring pull?
I want
It
to
was
say it
like
affected his.
Asanda, go ahead. Valerie, I'll come back to you.
because of the lumbar lengthening, it changes the structure of like what the hips are doing. And
Okay. What does it change
travels
there?
down
Sorry, say it again. Say the last part.
So I think it would be an anterior. I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. You're getting there though. I love it. I love where you went. Thank you. Go ahead,
So
Val.
is it the pelvic tilt?
I was going to say I would have checked his pelvis and seen what was happening there.
What would you have, for what? For what though?
I would think the weakness, it would have tilted back, so he would have had the proper tension he needed in his hamstring
He wouldn't have had the proper tension he needed in his hamstring because his
coming off
pelvis
of
moved?
the ischial tuberosity.
How would that have changed the tension off of his hamstring?
If the position of the pelvic bowl had shifted.
Yeah, tell me what. So the pelvic bowl shifted, and then
I'm
what?
trying to parse the rest of how
Yeah.
in my head.
So,
and I'm not
no,
getting
I
a
love
clear
it.
picture.
I love it. I love it. And I get to press on you guys who are in the mastery program, because this is the juncture right here, loves, right? I love where you're going with it. And I want you to keep going, because when we know something's off, but we can't even explain it fully yet to ourselves, then we can't get to the solution. So it is why I push you, for sure, right? It's with love. So yes,
So,
go ahead, Cheryl.
well, if he was slouching, somebody saw, he was probably doing a posterior pelvic tilt, right?
Okay.
So I would think, and that would have lengthened the lumbar spine.
Even more. Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did that create a hamstring pull feeling? The feeling of a hamstring pull. So this is what I love. I love that you guys see tensile stress now. Just notice. Like when we started this hour, some of you weren't even clear what tensile stress was. You can see it now, and you can even see it in motion, even in your mind's eye. Amazing. But how did it create that symptom?
Yeah, because you would think that if it was an anterior pelvic tilt, that would be more likely that you would feel it in the hamstring.
Right.
And not so much posterior. So,
and yet here we are. So yeah, exactly, Cheryl. And I love how you worked through that. So how did this posture and this 20-pound weight pack create the feeling in this client that he pulled a hamstring?
well, it must be the lumbar muscles are pulling on the hamstring. I mean,
Are you making that up, or do you know for sure?
well, we're all connected, so it's
Yeah, but
likely.
So I'm gonna throw in, because Cheryl, I like where you're going with this. But he's doing squats, right? And what's responsible, one of the jobs of the hamstring is to flex the knee joint.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
he's doing squats. He's got his erector spina, the paraspinals in a lengthened position, which means that his pelvis is tilted. So his hamstrings are no longer lined up properly. It's going to, when he's bending and then coming back up, and then, when he's doing his squats, the hamstrings aren't lined up. I would think that the squats at minimum are going to exacerbate the hamstrings.
How are the squats going to exacerbate what in the hamstrings?
Well, they're not where they're supposed to be, because he doesn't have his sacral curve. He's not coming down properly. So therefore, I'm thinking if he's in a posterior tilt, his hamstrings are actually a little contracted rather than lengthened. Somebody help me out here.
Yeah.
The postural alignment, he might be compensating by going duck-footed.
No. Don't make up more
No?
stuff. Don't make up more stuff.
Okay.
You have all the
Okay.
information you need. You're muted, Anna.
He's trying to come up out of a squat when his hamstring is not, a whole bunch of muscles are not properly aligned, but in particular, a muscle that is creating, but wait a minute, his psoas, because when he's psoas.
What about the psoas?
Certain
Like
psoas.
the flexion,
The flexion.
Flexion of what, Cheryl?
hip flexion.
Yep. What else?
Yeah. And it's the synergist of the glute muscle, but wait a minute. But what helps the glute muscle when it's not doing its job? The hamstring.
What's the synergist of the glute muscle, Anna?
The psoas.
Is it?
No, it's reciprocal. Sorry, the synergist of the glute max is the hamstrings.
There you go. Great.
Oh, he's screwed.
He's not screwed. And he's not
So-
screwed. And we
so he's-
fixed it. He left. So go ahead, Cheryl.
So is he not using his glute muscles enough if they're weakened?
How does not using the glute muscles pull a hamstring? And why?
Because the glute muscle or the hamstrings are doing the job of the glute muscles.
He's not engaging. Yeah, he's not engaging.
Well, you don't know that. You don't know that he's not engaging. The
Yeah,
only
my
thing
hand is on his ass. I can tell.
Okay, so most people can use a little more glute max power, that's for sure. Gary
Yeah.
says the psoas attaches on the femur, exactly right. So most people can use a little more glute max action, that's true. And the topic on the table for today so far has been tensile stress. So I teed it up for you. So here's what I'll tell you, because we have a minute and a half left for our training hour for today, which I love. Cliffhanger to the max. I will tell you that we resolved it completely. He left with no pain and followed up with him and still no pain. So it is resolvable. And we did not resolve it from his hamstrings. So next week, we're going to start with what was the solution. And you guys have a week to think it through because you have everything. You have everything you need to know about him. I didn't hold back any more information. Yes, of course, there's other stuff in his body. Yes, yes, yes. But I streamlined it for you for today's topic. You can't sleep. No, Gary. Good. That means you guys will come back and I can play with you guys again next week, which I can't wait. And you'll mull it over, which will be perfect. We'll start with it next week. I will absolutely give you the solution, but I want you to think for it. I want you to have it so that if you can think it through in your own mind on this case study, you can think through it on any case study. And I really want that for you. So I'm not just going to give you the answer a minute and a half out here. It would be easy for me and it wouldn't support you. I promise. But we will get to the answer next week. And in the meantime, you can come back and listen to this if you want to listen again through any part of this replay. It'll be, of course, available for you all week. And we'll solve the problem. The mystery case study will be solved next week. Deal? Well, it has to be a deal because that's what we're doing. Okay. So I really want to acknowledge each of you for really getting a grasp on tensile stress today. Like even the concept of it, if you walked in here not knowing it or not sure if you knew it, and now you know it, high five, like amazing. Because it does cause, yeah, you too, Gary, because it does cause some real symptoms. Like people think they have a hamstring pull and it's a tensile stress thing somewhere else. So congratulations on that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming for the first time and staying all the way through. Thank you for those of you who I see, all of you who are here and not on camera. And so I love that you stuck it out and I hope you'll come back next week for the final. And thank you for sharing this training with any other colleague or practitioner that you think would benefit from it. I really, really love pouring into all of you because we all get to raise our game. There's a lot of people who need us, more of them than there are those of us to serve. So thank you for being so dedicated to the work that you do. And I love that you're out there in the world doing amazing work. I'll see you guys next week. Okay.